Okay, Marilyn, so picture this, right? It's 7:59 this morning, April 20th, 2026. And somewhere in a federal building, there's this IT admin just staring at a screen, watching a progress bar. It's for a custom system, CAPE, just waiting to go live.
Uh-huh. The big moment.
Exactly. And then 8 a.m. hits. Boom, it's live. And guess what the very first thing it accepts is? A refund declaration. And then another. And then just another. By the end of today, Maryland, we're talking tens of thousands of American importers. They're filing claims against the U.S. government for money the government, collected under a legal authority the Supreme Court just said, nope, you never actually had that.
Wow. And while that portal's blinking to life, somewhere else, a politician is like walking to a podium, all ready to project this sovereign command over the American economy.
At the exact same moment. And that gap, between the portal and the podium, between what power actually costs and what power claims it has, that's where we're living right now. Today, we're going to show everyone how to, read that gap. Not the announcement, the gap.
Because here's the thing. That gap, it has a size, it has a direction. And this is the part that I think really matters for everyone listening. It has a timeline that's just compressing super fast.
By the end of this, you're going to have one really durable skill, right? How to separate a political announcement from a durable outcome. And not like a cynicism, just as a structural reading habit. Because honestly, the evidence we're seeing today suggests that if you can't do that, if you can't tell the podium from the portal, you're just going to keep getting surprised by stuff that was actually completely predictable.
Okay, so let's put some hard numbers on the table. Because, the abstract case is just so much less interesting than the actual mechanical reality of it. What's the single most expensive example of what happens when political velocity just slams into legal physics?
$166 billion. That's the number currently sitting in that refund queue that just opened this morning at all those port of entry systems across the country. To even understand where that came from, you really need to know about IEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. It was basically written to let the executive branch freeze the assets of, hostile states in genuine national emergencies.
Right, super specific.
Yeah, super specific. But the administration, they just took that statute and used it as a broad-based tariff engine. Congress got bypassed, revenue just started flowing immediately. We're talking $175 billion collected over roughly a year.
Just incredible velocity.
Extraordinary velocity. And then, February 20th, 6-3, the Supreme Court says, nope, that's not what that all does. And the mechanism of that ruling, that's the part I think everyone underestimates. The court didn't just say, hey, stop collecting. It ruled the collection was illegal from the very beginning, which means that entire revenue instrument just flipped into a liability instrument overnight.
The ledger just completely reversed itself, huh?
Totally reversed. And the analogy I keep coming back to, imagine a city that decides to fund its entire road maintenance budget by just towing cars parked in zones that it turns out were never legally posted as no parking zones. For a year, the tickets just roll in, the budget gets spent, and then a judge rules that every single ticket was invalid from day one. Now, you don't just have to stop issuing tickets, right? You have to refund every single one that was ever paid. The revenue you already spent is just gone. The liability lands in full.
And you still have potholes.
Oh, you still have potholes, yes. And the administration's now trying to repave with Section 122 tariffs and Section 232, which are legally available authorities. But those need, formal investigations, evidentiary findings, and rulemaking timelines that you can't collapse them by executive order. That instant deploy option, it's off the table. The source material puts it precisely. The harder return is already in the data.
And the CAPE portal going live this morning, that's not some abstraction. That's the government's plumbing literally being rebuilt in real time to process a refund operation that has no precedent in American customs history.
20 million unliquidated entries. The system wasn't even capable of compliance on March 4th when the Court of International Trade first ordered it. The CBP commissioner had to go to a federal judge and say in writing, "We cannot physically do this right now. Our systems don't support it at this scale."
Which is just a remarkable sentence in itself, isn't it?
It really is. The administrative state, ordered to implement a correction, had to tell the court, the correction is too large for us to execute immediately. That's the private price of the public move.
Okay, but here's where I want to push past just the tariff case, because I think people are going to hear $166 billion and just file it under big number, doesn't affect me. And I really want to locate this in someone's actual week.
Yeah, go. Tell us.
So there are 3 other live signal clusters running simultaneously. First point, the Department of Justice sought bulk access to voter registration records and ballot maintenance materials in Democratic-led states. Rhode Island, Michigan, Oregon, California. The framing was election integrity. The legal mechanism was a pretty aggressive interpretation of federal civil rights statutes.
And what happened?
Federal court in Rhode Island ruled there was no predicated civil rights violation. Michigan just refused outright. Oregon and California are signaling the same. Every one of those channels is blocked.
But the announcement is still live, right? The administration is still broadcasting that initial demand as if it's an active proceeding.
Totally. Projecting velocity while sitting in a ditch. And then you have Section 702. That's the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Authority that, sweeps up U.S. citizen communications when those citizens interact with foreign targets. The administration wanted a multi-year renewal. Congress gave them 10 days, just through April 30th.
10 days. Wow.
And I need people to feel what 10 days actually means for a compliance officer at a major telecom or cloud company, You have these automated pipelines that they hand data to intelligence agencies. Those pipelines are shielded from massive privacy litigation by the existence of Section 702. If that law expires and your system hands over data on day 11, you've just committed an actionable breach. So you have 2 choices, right? Manually review every data handoff or preemptively shut the pipeline down. Neither of those is stability. Both of those are the exact opposite of what the administration's announcement described.
What pricing markets call a volatility tax, actually. The cost isn't the law expiring. The cost is that 10-day horizon, making it impossible to price whether the law will expire. You just can't build quarterly compliance architecture on a legal instrument with the shelf life of fresh produce. It's impossible.
And the hidden connection, across all 3 of these, the refund operation, the voter records litigation, that surveillance patch, is what I think the source material calls the paper state versus the kinetic state. The formal, documented assertion of authority versus what is actually operating in the administrative machinery.
Right. And those 2 things are supposed to be the same, In a functional government, they move together. What we're seeing is this growing divergence between what the executive branch documents and what the bureaucratic, legal, and judicial systems will actually execute.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And here's the lateral connection that doesn't get made enough. This divergence is not politically legible yet. It shows up in court dockets, in customs processing queues, in telecom compliance memos, in the internal deliberations of state attorneys general. The announcement is on television. The correction costs are buried in administrative filings that nobody outside the affected industries is reading.
Which is exactly why the skill of separating announcement from outcome is not a political stance. It's a survival skill for anyone trying to make business decisions in this environment, don't you think?
Absolutely. Project it forward 5 years. If the pattern holds, and there's no structural reason it reverses without a deliberate conversion effort, you don't end up with executive overreach that just gets corrected. You end up with 2 governments, one that issues orders, one that manages the litigation and refund operations generated by those orders. And at some point, the market stops watching the one issuing orders.
When the announcement loses all predictive value, capital just migrates to the court docket. The podium becomes decorative. Okay, so I want to break something here, because everything we've said so far maps neatly onto a story of external constraint defeating executive overreach. Courts blocking bad moves, states refusing unlawful demands. The system like working. And I think that story isn't complete in a way that actually matters.
What's the crack?
The Warsh hearing. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., Kevin Warsh sits before the Senate Banking Committee. The administration needs him confirmed before May 15th, when Powell's term expires. They've been applying aggressive political pressure on interest rates, publicly demanding cuts, implying the Fed's independence is negotiable. And the Senate Banking Committee is going to use the confirmation process as a stress test of exactly that independence. Because the bond market needs the Fed to be insulated from that kind of pressure. And if it isn't, the cost of money just becomes unmoored from economic data and drifts toward political optimization.
The administration's trying to bend an institution whose entire value to the market derives from not being bendable.
Right.
But here's what breaks that clean external constraint narrative. Senator Tom Tillis has said he will vote no on Warsh unless the DOJ drops its criminal investigation into Jerome Powell. And the D.C. U.S. attorney leading that investigation, Jeanine Pirro, the administration's own appointee, has publicly said she will continue the investigation regardless. She called Tillis's concerns white noise.
Wow. The administration's own DOJ is blocking the administration's own Fed chair nomination? That's...
Yeah, the optimization function is like eating itself, you know? This isn't external constraint, Marcus. This is internal fragmentation. The executive branch launched an investigation designed to weaken Powell. That investigation is now the single largest obstacle to replacing Powell. The tool just turned into the tripwire.
And the steel man of the "this is just temporary stress" view, the argument that this is a system under friction but not in transition, does it survive contact with that?
Here's where I think it partially survives and partially doesn't. The Steelman says, this is what institutional friction looks like. There's always slippage between assertion and implementation. Administrations overreach, courts correct, markets reprice. The system self-regulates. Nothing here is categorically different from prior cycles of executive aggression. Watergate, Iran-Contra, the AUMF post-9/11. Overreach, correction, stabilization.
So where does it crack then? What's different?
The correction mechanism has a load limit, right? In prior cycles, the institutions doing the correcting, courts, Congress, independent agencies, they retained their operational standing throughout. They had the credibility to impose review because they hadn't been systematically targeted. What's different now is the simultaneity. The DOJ investigation into the Fed chair is not just an error. It is the use of the correction mechanism as an offensive weapon. You're not just generating technical debt in the tariff space, the surveillance space, the voting record space. You're instrumentalizing the very institutions designed to impose correction. If that works, even partially, the cost of the next iteration of overreach just goes way up because the corrector has been compromised.
So the question isn't whether the system survives this cycle. It's whether the institutions that manage this correction retain enough standing to manage the next one. That's a big question.
That's the question the data cannot resolve today. It depends on what Tillis does, on what the Senate Banking Committee extracts from Warsh under oath, on whether that April 30th intelligence deadline produces a durable deal or just another 10-day carton of milk. These are not structural inevitabilities, Marcus. They're choices not yet made, sitting at specific decision forks held by named individuals in documented moments.
And the outcome of each one just feeds the next iteration of the loop, right? Forceful assertion leads to institutional exposure. Exposure generates correction costs. The administration responds with renewed assertion. The governor that breaks the loop, that's the one thing there's no evidence of yet. The deliberate conversion of political initiative into lawful, durable implementation.
Exactly. So here's the actionable frame, right? Given everything we just walked through, the most structurally sound move you can make this week, and I mean this literally, is to build a one-question habit. Every time you see a major political announcement, before you process it as a fact, ask, what court, what state attorney general, or what Senate confirmation step still has to happen before this becomes durable? If you can't answer that, you're only looking at the public price. You are watching the podium, not the portal.
The portal is where the actual structural weight sits this week, and specifically the events carrying the most structural weight between now and April 27th, they're not the announcements. They're the Warsh testimony tomorrow.
The April 30th, Section 702 deadline, multi-year deal, or another 10-day patch, they are not equivalent, not even close. And the Kate processing operation that just opened this morning, which is the physical expression of what it costs to build policy on borrowed legal authority.
And Marcus, there's a version of this analysis that reads as pessimism about institutional resilience, and I want to be precise about why it isn't. The courts functioned, the states functioned, the Senate Banking Committee is functioning right now. Those are not trivial observations. The system imposed review.
So the system's still working, for now.
Yes, for now. But what remains genuinely open is whether the institutions that imposed this round of review retain enough operational standing to impose the next one. And that depends entirely on choices being made in the next 10 days by people who have not yet chosen, which leaves me with the thought I cannot get out of my head, honestly. We have a word for the moment when the paper state and the kinetic state fully separate, when the formal structure of authority and the apparatus that actually operates a country stop referring to each other. We call it a regime. And the defining feature of that transition is not that it announces itself. It is that one day, enough of the people who need to act on official authority have quietly decided to trade on the court dockets instead, not because of ideology, because that's where the predictive information moved.
The April 30th deadline, the Warsh hearing, the correction costs currently printing at U.S. Customs. Watch the procedural layer. That is where the actual